I hope this is going to work. We're not out on the streets, and I'll talk about that in a minute as to why we're not out on the streets. But we are in Cancun. Let me just show you. Michelle's just gone to, we had a bottle of pop. We wanted to get it open, but we realised we don't have a bottle opener with us. So we're in Cancun Central. Just check, oh, let me just check the sound is going. Somebody give me a quick sound check. Quick sound check with somebody, if you can. Anybody want to give me a... Byron, how are you, mate? Gordon, g'day, mate. Sounds perfect, beautiful. All right, so I'll carry on then, as I was. This is our little balcony. This is our busy main road out Central. And when we arrived here, we came into this room and we thought, this is going to be noisy with the road out there, but it really hasn't been. The windows are pretty, they're not double glazed, but they're pretty sound. And we like having all that activity outside. So we've decided to stay in this room. We've been here for several days now. And despite the fact that it buffers when I go outside, sorry about that. Yeah, let me just check. It does buffer when I go outside. I forgot about that because the internet works really well. And we'll talk about internet. Let me just get over here. I've just been downstairs to get some great food as well. And I've tried out a little quesadilla store that's below our apartment that we haven't been to before. So I'll let you know how they are in a moment. Well, Michelle's abandoned me. What happened is we decided to get a bottle of pop and bring it back with us. And then we realized when we got into the apartment or in the room that neither one of us had anything to open the bottle with. And short of sort of banging it up against the desk in here and damaging the desk, we decided to go and just go down to the canteen or the restaurant, should I call it? I suppose I should call it a restaurant downstairs, and get it opened. Snow has gone, man. Good. Isn't it nice when snow comes and then suddenly it goes and you're always, when it first comes, it's, oh, yippee, the snow's here. And then I know my good friends up in Michigan, when they have really heavy snow, it looks absolutely gorgeous. But come the sort of latter end of winter, they're really pleased to see it go. And I think they're probably snowed under at the moment. Beautiful, Cal. I will try and do more lives, Cal. We're struggling a little bit with internet, and we're getting a bit misled by the telecom companies over here. It's not quite as clean cut as other places. I bought a package which should have given me 6 gigabytes of data, and it ran out after that first live stream. Pretty much it was all over with. I think Michelle must have got into bother because she only had to go down a couple of flights of stairs and get it open, so maybe she's had to go outside. They probably said they haven't got a bottle opener, in which case I should have done it on the side of this counter. So yes, where was I? I'm flitting all over the place. So we went out and did the live the other day, and towards the end of the live, I got a data message saying you'd virtually run out of data. So I went to the Telcel store here in Cancun, and they were hopeless. I mean, they basically looked online and said, no, you've got 6 gigabytes of data. And I said, but it's not working, or it had a tiny amount left. By the time that seemed to take longer than I thought, Michelle.
Well, the kitchen was closed.
Right.
So we had to end up getting an extra person, and he got the spirit level, and he opened it after the.
Oh, I could have done it myself on the cabinet. Come and say hello to everyone.
So we should do it on the cabinet. The guy at reception didn't have much experience. He ended up cutting his finger on the scissors that he was using.
Oh no!
But just a tiny little bit, just on the edge of the.
So we've killed the receptionist.
Yeah, killed the receptionist, and then he called for somebody who had more experience, and he brought a spirit level and just.
I could have done it. I could have done it with a lighter.
That's what he was looking for, but he didn't have one.
I've got one in the pack.
So there you go. That didn't take long, did it?
That didn't take long. That only took 10 minutes. So
I'll do it on this one. I think it's easier.
All right, Michelle's going to monitor the comments.
So I'm just here.
She's just there. Say hello. Cal's in, and Gordon's in. Val's there as well.
Yeah,
Hi, Val.
Val's there, Cheryl's in.
Cheryl's in.
Fifth Corner Records in.
Hi, Leora from
Arizona.
Arizona. Beautiful.
Who's got really cold weather? I hear a lot in the States have got a lot of cold snow.
These Coca-Colas here in Mexico, a lot of people have told me the Coke here is much better because they use the original sugars. They don't use the strange sugars. And I can confirm the Coke here is really nice. You get the old style glass bottles. This one is a Medio half litre. But
So Mandy says hi, and Chris Sticky says hi. And Gordon says, wish I could buy glass bottles of cola in the shops.
Yes, it's a real. There's a deposit on the bottle as well. Isn't that much more sensible than those awful plastic bottles? We all think we've been so progressive, gone over to these ridiculous plastic bottles. These bottles, they've got a 5 peso deposit on them. So if you don't take it back to the shop, somebody's going to take it back to the shop, which means it's going to get recycled and it's going to stay in the system. And we're not going to be using up all that plastic. Who on earth came up with the idea of stopping doing glass bottles and going over to plastic? I have no idea. That's just such a non-progressive movement, isn't it? So yeah, there's a deposit on the bottles.
Yeah, she asked me if I was taking it away. I said yes. 5 Minute Man says, can you give a shout out to my son Ryan? Hi Ryan.
G'day Ryan, how are you, mate? Where is Ryan?
I don't know, wherever 5 Minute Man is.
We hope you're having a lovely day, Ryan, wherever you are in the world. Anyway, while they're still hot, Michelle, I decided to get some of the quesadillas from the little shop downstairs.
Okay, we've not tried those.
Yeah, so I thought we could have a little try while they're hot.
Did you see Byron was in as well? Said hi.
Byron, yeah, Byron was in at the beginning. I don't know if he's still there. Byron sometimes says hello. I don't know if he's still there. Say hello, Byron. So these were quesadillas to take out. So they should be con pollo with chicken. It's a little quesadilla store just outside our hotel, really. Look at those lovely toasty quesadillas, and inside should be some chicken, some sort of smoky chicken, and some gooey cheese.
We have learned to remember to ask for chicken.
Yes.
Otherwise you get black bean or some sort of...
Yeah, well, you've got to ask for your quesadillas in whatever fashion, whether you want them with pork or chicken. If you don't ask, well, actually, he did. No, you're confusing things there, Michelle, because he did actually ask me what I wanted, and he said the name in Spanish, and I said yes. So that's this is the picante. This is the little chili sauces.
So Fifth Corner Record says looks delicious.
It is delicious.
And Skelchy says hello, just about to go to sleep and saw you on.
Oh, hi Anne.
And 5 Minute Man says we're in North Devon.
North Devon. Michelle, you got those little scissors?
I can get those.
Now I'm going to pop one of these aside for you to have a nibble on. I'll pop it over on that plate over there, and I'm going to eat this one. So I like the chili. Michelle likes it without chili. So we've got a little set of scissors. I'm just going to nip the corner off this sauce.
Yeah, if chili is optional, I go without, but I don't mind eating it if it comes with chili.
I quite like this. Green chilies are quite spicy. Salsa verde, it is, and it's quite. I don't know if this store's very hot, so I'll take a little splash of it. So.
Cheryl says yummy fresh quesadillas, and 5 Minute Man says Ryan is 8.
Lucky 8, Ryan.
Yeah.
8's a lucky number in many places in the world, so it's going to be your best year ever. So I've got my quesadilla. I put a bit of chili in there, little salsa verde, and it's lovely and crispy. Look at she's toasted it up.
Very toasted.
But these are small. I've actually got our favourite one in here. You'll see the difference in a minute. That's a 25 peso quesadilla. This is a 15 peso quesadilla.
So this is his appetizer.
Mm.
Gordon says hi to Ryan as well, so Ryan's getting all the hellos. And Cal the Gardener said, have you had any fish and chips in Mexico yet, Steve? And what's the price of beer?
Fish and chips?
In
I don't have fish and chips in Mexico.
He's eating the national dish now, I think. Well, they're probably tacos are more the national dish.
This is a nice quesadilla, but it's not as good as that one.
No. I reckon we found a good one with that one.
And we've also found, and we've just been editing the video for, well, I'm halfway through it. It'll take me a while. for another great little store that we found. So
yes.
so you'll be seeing that. I've had many tamales. Hi Anne, how are you? That's yours, Michelle.
I know, but I'll wait till you've got your mouth clear, because otherwise we're both going to be
Okay.
talking at the same time and I've got to ask a question.
So the cheese in this one is not as stringy as I would have thought. Good day, Arthur. How are you? I've got that light behind me. I'm sorry about that. I'll try and sit my body in front of it. So a little bit of chicken, a little bit of cheese.
Want to pull that blind down a bit? Would that help?
No.
Anne says she's good, but a little sleepy. The time for bed.
Said Zebedee.
So, Fifth Corner Record said, I saw that Cancun doesn't adhere to the daylight savings time. What time is it there? 3 or 4?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. And I don't know about daylight. I haven't really. We don't pay a lot of attention.
We just make sure we know what time it is in the local place that we are.
So for 25 pesos, you get a really nice salsa verde. I'm going to say that salsa verde was a little bit thin, a little bit watery. Whoops. I have got that light behind me, Michelle. Maybe we should put it down just for a little while, but I might be going out there again later on. So just about a third of the way down. So this salsa verde is really picante, really spicy. That's enough, Michelle, yeah. And for 25 pesos, this is a very different kettle of fish altogether. So let's come down here again so you get to see what I'm seeing. So I've got a...
So Anne said she's off to bed, clicked on the light, enjoy your dinner, you two.
Oh, thank you, Anne.
Have a good night's sleep.
There you go. This is the quesadilla from the other store. This is from Quesadilla de Louis, my favourite quesadilla store at the moment. Look at all the fresh crumbly cheese in there, and look at all the lovely cooked chicken, the little spicy chicken.
Did you want to put on a separate plate, make it easier for you?
Yeah, I might do. I might
Separate plate, she said.
separate plate. Get all our lovely. But look at the thickness of that. How thick that is. That's like an absolute. That's like a cricket bat, full of lovely cheese and bits. Well, extra 10 pesos. This is for the win. Absolutely. Now this one here is basically a fried quesadilla. It's an empanada. You watching the comments, Michelle,
Yeah,
just in case anyone's asking anything?
Yeah.
So this is basically a fried one of these. What they do is they seal down the sides. This flour or this pastry here is a masa corn pastry, and on this one they seal down the sides and deep fry it, and when they serve it they put the extra cheese. So the cheese that goes inside here goes on top with a little bit of a sort of mayonnaise or sour cream on there. And generally, if I'm eating it in the store, let me just open this little package up.
Gordon says it's strange how UK don't have night stores selling food like Mexico or India, etc.
No, well, these places are very much that people eat out all the time, so it'd be unusual. See, now look, I'm going to put the salsa. They normally dribble the salsa verde over the top of your quesadilla or your empanada before they serve it to you. But when you take it out, they'll give you a little sachet to bring. Now this one is pretty hot. I mean, really hot.
So Cheryl said, "You're killing me. I'm hungry. That looks amazing."
Have you got a fork?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't got a knife, have we? Oh, a spoon maybe. I'm going to be a bit old school and just use a spoon to cut this because Michelle wants to share this with me. And I'm going to let her.
Have a spoon. We do have a fork as well.
So, got my lovely Scam pan. We travel with them all the time.
So Anne says she has a blouse with the same floral prints, so that's 2 for 2. We definitely have the same taste for clothes. That's good, Anne.
So I'm cutting this in half, except for my half's going to be bigger than Michelle's because she's already said to me she's had her breakfast a little bit earlier on. I've got a bigger appetite. Excuses.
Yeah,
Excuses.
So Cal the Gardener says, "What's your plans for this week? I have a long weekend starting tomorrow night, so we'll be at my allotment. Can't wait."
Cal, we are actually on the move tomorrow again. We're going to a completely different city. I'm going to keep that a little bit of a secret for the time being. So we're on the move. It's going to be quite exciting. So the next time I do a live stream, if we ever, I was talking to you about the SIM cards. Let me talk. So that's our plan anyway. I don't for the weekend. What day is it today?
Wednesday, Tuesday.
So look at this.
That's a long weekend.
It is. Look at this quesadilla. Now I'll turn it upside down so I get coloured.
Cal the gardener says, nice, back to Rick's, is it? No, we're not going back to Rick's. And Anne says, I think in Hungary they have something like that fried dough. How does that taste like? We'll see in a minute when it gets to that one, Anne. Right.
If you make a quesadilla, let me just get a bit of a napkin here. I thought I had one. If you, I'm good.
No.
If you make quesadillas, probably in Australia, you're going to use wheat flour breads to make these, and it makes a huge difference if you can make them with corn flour, nixtamalized masa flour. Sorry, I'm got a bit stuck. This is where all the flavor comes from, and this is why when I eat quesadillas in Mexico, they taste so, I would say fantastic, but also reminiscent of Mexico. So it's the bread that makes the difference, it's the cheese that makes the difference. If you can, I've got a whole video on how to make nixtamalized flour. You can actually buy bags of masa flour as well and make your own tortillas. This is basically a tortilla that is then filled with chicken and cheese and sour cream, spices, folded over and just fried on, or just heated on a griddle. The other one is the same sort of thing, but they seal the edges up. It's like a little pasty, the empanada, and they deep fry it in very clean oil. This place is super clean.
See how much thicker that is compared to the other one. This is so full of filling and chicken and cheese and yum.
It's so delicious. So delicious. We shouldn't really do eating live stream, should we?
No. Not when you're hungry as well. You
I had to carry it back from the store, so it's not as hot.
No.
And we've had to set up the live stream, so it's not as hot. Normally, when I'm biting this, the cheese, sort of the stringy cheese, comes out, but the cheese has set a little bit here because it had time to cool down.
The Fifth Corner Record says, "I'm digging it, ha ha." But we're sharing it with you. You might not be able to taste it though.
So tasty, so tasty. We made a video yesterday walking around central Cancun, and we stumbled across a fantastic taco stand as well, and that's a video that I shall be working on shortly. The tacos also in Mexico, they are special. They're very, very different to what you would have in Australia, for example, and I think in a lot of other places. I'm not sure about the US.
We particularly like all the food cart ones, don't we? We seem to have found the ones that are the food carts that are good.
Street tacos are the way to go. Talk, Michelle.
That's all right, I thought you were waiting for
No.
halfway through a sentence, that's why.
My mouth's full of food. If you've got any questions, sorry, Mum.
No, nobody's got
No questions, anybody?
No, nobody's asking any questions.
Okay.
I think we've got a couple of questions you're going to answer once you've finished eating. Did you talk about the SIM cards and things? Because somebody asked about that, didn't they? You've probably done that while I was out getting your coats opened.
So, the tacos here in Mexico, when we first came here some years ago, we found them so delicious, particularly on the street carts where they're popular, where you see a street cart that's really busy and thumping, you know the tacos are going to be really good. They're very simple. Two little tortillas, normally two. And I made a mistake, actually. The one we went to, I called it a carnita in the video, and it's not a carnita because carnita is generally a slow-cooked pork or sometimes beef or other meats, but generally a slow-cooked pork that just sort of shreds apart, and then they cut it up and put it into the tacos. This one is more like a diced, lean meat that they cut up and put into the tacos, and it's got a different name, but I'm not sure 100% of the name. Michelle's watching me like she's watching the live stream. She should be watching you guys.
Well, I am. I know there's a question. Because Cal the Gardener says, any thoughts yet on how long you'll be in Mexico?
Cal, I'm not 100% sure how long we'll be in Mexico. We haven't got plans. I still getting, and I don't know if people will come in today who are on that sort of spiteful scale of constantly having to go at us for traveling and what have you. I don't really care, to be honest, what their opinions are, but I do like to antagonize them somewhat. So this is Michelle and I's life choice. You know what we do here. This is a life choice. It's been greatly cobbled by what's happened in 2020 and 2021, possibly even 2022, the rate things are going. But we're not about to change every single aspect of the way we live. We don't live inside the same sort of systems and this is what people have often said to us, how do you manage to do what we do? Just because we choose to do what we do. It doesn't take any more planning than is normal. We just, this is what we choose to do. So I do get a lot of sort of bitterness, and sometimes it's really...
He says, let them get mad in their diaper face.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of sourness, and I don't know where the hate comes from. There's so much division now in media and in social media, to be honest. Everything's about division. It's about Brexit or not Brexit. It's about Trump or not Trump. Everything's trying to divide everybody up, and we've always found through traveling around the world that generally people have a lot more in common than they have against. But the thing is, the hatred that's come from that is so intense that even just sort of walking outside and not doing things the way someone else wants you to do it can get, it just raises the sort of bile in people's sort of attitudes. And I'm not tired of it, but it's become boring, and you know, there's nothing particular on you. It's a very vanilla state to be in, where you'll get people coming on saying, how dare you travel during lockdown, you should be disgusted, you know, all this sort of stuff. We don't really care to be, and it's not, as the regular followers know that we care for everybody as much, probably more. Actually, to be honest, I care for people a lot more than the people that are thinking this right now, watching this. I care for people a lot more, and I care for people a lot more than the people are commenting. It's because people comment vilely and sort of aggressively and sort of negatively. Those are the least caring people on the planet, although they dress up in this sort of clown uniform that presumes that they care. Anyway, let me finish my quesadilla.
Cheryl says, so now I'm making quesadillas for dinner. Well, sometimes you just got to go with it. You're obviously giving her the idea there.
I'm down to the empanada now, Cheryl.
So Grim says, same people said 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And
in February.
Last year.
Yeah, February 2020.
Cal the Gardener says, thank you for caring, and Anne says, I agree. And
well, generally, my experience is that most people are very kind, considerate, and caring. But most people that are not are often the loudest. So, although it seems like there's a lot of sort of hateful sort of attitudes out there from people, you know, you can't do this, you should do this, that, and the other. They're usually what you've heard it said many, you know, the loud minority, and they are. Anyway, come down here, empanada time. So I've cut the empanada in half, well, sort of. And now this is basically a fried. It's a fried quesadilla, so the insides are very similar. I've gone for chicken rather than pork. Sometimes I get a pork one, but I was in a bit of a rush and just said una empanada pollo and one quesadilla pollo. Now, when they make these ones, they put all the sauces on the outside and the cheese on the outside, and then I put the chili, the picante, the chili. We are learning a bit of Spanish. Another thing you often get in travel videos is, how dare you go to Baluchistan and not speak the language? And you think, what on earth are you doing in Turkey? You don't speak Turkish. What are you doing in Uzbekistan? You don't speak Uzbeki. What people don't understand, particularly, it's usually the really smug person that speaks one extra language. So it's quite often, what they don't understand is, if you travel a lot and you love seeing the world, you cannot speak every language, but you can make an effort to speak every language. So we speak a little bit of a lot of languages. We're not fluent, particularly in any languages. I speak fairly decent German, reasonably good French, but we're not.
I'm fluent in English.
You're fluent in English. I'm fluent in Australian. Anyway, empanada time. While that sinks in, let me just.
So Denise Judge says hi everyone, and Sue John says hi Steve. Have I missed the live? No, Sue, we're still here.
No, you're here, Sue.
Denise says Steve is such a foodie, love it. Gracie Kitty says, oh, that looks good.
So what happens when they fry it?
And Ben says, how much did I miss, lol?
You're all right, Ben. When they fry it, it lifts the flavours. To me, I think that's the how can I say, the oil works well on the tongue, right? It changes the flavours. A lot of dishes that don't quite taste right need a little bit of oil in them just to sort of lift the fats on the tongue. By frying the quesadilla, basically, you add oil to the pastry. Yes, it's not a healthy dish, but the flavours are there, and the softness of the dough. It's become more airy, more like a soft batter. The meats are still warm in this one, and it's obviously got hotter than the quesadilla did. It can be, if the oils are not the right temperature, the batter, the bread, for want of another word, can be a bit oily. These are not. These are done perfectly.
So Denise says, so true. And Northern Migration says, love empanadas. I miss South America. And Fifth Corner Record says, my dad is in Juarez, and he tells me everything closes down there at night. Other places there in Cancun open at night. Just letting that sink in. That's the food, not the question.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, Sue John said, good, would love one of those.
That is so good. It's like a sort of profiterole stroke. It's almost, I was going to say like a fish batter, but it isn't, because it isn't as light as a fish batter. But the flavours are just lifted by the frying. I like the empanadas. That's of the three dishes we've just had, that's the tastiest, in my opinion. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that there's extra oil, which is not super healthy, but in moderation. There's extra oil in there, so it's hitting the palate just right. No, we're not really any great lockdowns.
No, I would say it opens up more in the evening.
Oh yeah, much busier in the evening than it is in the daytime. There's not really. Which area was his father in?
Juarez. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Juarez. So no. No, it's if anything, it's busier in the evening time than it is in the daytime by quite a considerable amount, because all the restaurants and things start opening up. The streets are quieter because the tourists are clearly not here. I don't pay a massive amount of attention to what's going on in the world, so I'm a little bit. But then I never did. I don't want to live in that particular fish tank, so I try to avoid it. So there are things that we have done a little research, and where we're heading to, it's in a similar condition. The rules and regulations are very similar. We have noticed a lot more people are just trying to get on with their lives now, I think, and get on, and they're not particularly being quite so ridiculously controlled with the masks and things. But it is much the same here as it is in many other parts of the world. You know, people, they say to you, the governments say jump, the people say how high, and that seems to be very much the same. But we are sensing that I would like to say things are opening up a little bit, but I think 2021 at the moment, I'm starting to think it's just going to be another 2020 with just more nonsense running through.
And Life with Anna says, hey. Oh, hi. Sue John says, have you been to Acapulco? We've been on that coast, haven't we? But we haven't been to Acapulco.
No, we haven't been to Acapulco. We hope to try and get over that side of the country this year if we can. At the moment, we're on the east coast, and we're in Cancun, and we're not doing a lot of traveling. We haven't been able to get transportation, so it's always a little hard when you travel and you don't have a car. You get a little bit stuck in the area you are. Not that we mind, we're quite happy. We don't need to go and see this, that and the other. We're quite happy just talking with locals, enjoying local food. As I say, we stumbled across a great taqueria yesterday, and it's now our favourite taco restaurant in Cancun. I'll do a video on that coming shortly. But we're actually moving to another town, another city, as I said. So
Grim says, I like coconut oil. I think what we've got, those are cooked in coconut oil, the banana plantain chips that we've got. And Arthur Larson said, I enjoyed that style of empanadas when I was in Veracruz.
Veracruz, yeah.
Yeah. And he said, that style of empanada is hard to find.
Okay.
They're delicious.
But not so hard to make. Although frying food at home deep frying food can often be a bit of a pain in the backside. You know, there's all the smells involved with frying. A lot of modern houses are not sort of geared up for it. When we used to live in Queensland, Australia, some years ago, we would do a lot of this sort of cooking outside in the garden, because it's just easier and fresher to do. If you live in a country where outside living is available to you, then you can sort of fry your bacon and things outside on the barbie, and life becomes a bit easier. But when you've got, you know, your indoor living sort of Northern European, Northern American environments, and you've got to fry things indoors, it can all get a bit sort of too much work sometimes.
So Denise says, wondering if Cancun has bounced back since the hurricane. I haven't seen any signs of hurricane damage.
What hurricane?
I know. Well, that's what I mean. It looks okay to me, so I'd say yes.
Yes. When we lived in Hong Kong for many years, there would constantly be typhoons, and the typhoons were rated from sort of 1 to 8 on the Richter scale. It's not the scale actually for typhoons, but you know what I'm saying. So quite often you'll get a typhoon come through that might be a 6 or something, and they're pretty horrendous, pretty high levels. Occasionally you get an 8, and it would do a lot of damage. But there are other parts of the South China region that also have typhoons all year round, and we don't tend to hear about them because I'm not going on to see whether or not Yunnan has had any big storms. So quite often, if your world you live in, you hear about the typhoon that hits Mexico because you're watching that news channel. You've heard about it. I never heard about it. I barely hear about the ones that hit the US occasionally, because it has a much bigger social media sort of impact. You will find quite often, you know, Hurricane Robert will come through or whatever, and it'll be talked about. But as a rule, I don't look for that news. But I can answer your question. If you're saying there's been a hurricane, no, it doesn't look like there's any signs of hurricane damage here.
So Ben says, I definitely don't live in a country where outside living is available, Steve, honestly. Yeah, Ben, we believe you. Life with Anna says, what are you eating? I think it's
it's the very end of my empanada. Life with Anna.
And Grim says, 4 inches of snow on the ground, expecting more as well. So whereabouts are you, Grim?
Possibly in either one of the Scandinavian countries or in Northern America. I would guess. You could be up in the Highlands of Australia, of course. You could be up in the Australian Alps.
I was going to say the Highlands of Scotland. They might have snow as well.
Mm.
So Ben said, how is the property, by the way? All good. I don't think I noticed a kitchenette there.
No, no kitchen here, Ben. Hence we're eating out all the time.
Oh, sorry, Grim. Yes, 4 feet. I read it as 4 inches, but 4 feet of snow, and it's in Pennsylvania, USA.
Well, then, yeah, you're further north than we thought.
And Arthur said, did you hear about the earthquake in Japan this week? No, Arthur.
No, Arthur, we didn't. There's earthquakes all over the world every single day of the year. If it's not in sort of, Chile or Nicaragua or Japan or somewhere, there's always something going on. And if you follow the news, you can probably hear about an earthquake. If you're a massive earthquake fan, you could probably hear about an earthquake. I just don't follow that news.
No.
And I love Japan.
There was a few earthquakes when we were there.
Yeah, we had a few earthquakes when we were there. And we're going to head back to Japan because it's a country that we enjoyed so much. But I don't really care to know whether they had an earthquake or not. And one day somebody's going to say, but you didn't realise it's the biggest earthquake they've ever had and everywhere's gone. Maybe.
So Sue
I
John
don't
says,
really want to know.
Sue says it's warmed up here, 17 degrees Fahrenheit, which Ben says is -8. Wow, that's cold. Yes, that's too cold for me.
No, I like the cold like that because when it's really cold, the air gets drier and the cold is nice. It's when it's sort of hovering between sort of 3 degrees, 5 degrees Celsius and minus, that it's constantly damp and miserable and grey. That's the worst sort of cold. But when it's really, you remember in France we used to quite often we'd get sort of -11 and things. That was some of the loveliest days because we could get outside, the air was crisp. It was cold, but
as Ben says, aka UK weather.
yeah. Yeah.
He also says, how is the property, Steve? How long are you staying there for?
Who's that, Ben? Ben, it's just an apartment. It's tidy, it's clean, it's modern. It's a
hotel room.
It's a little. Yes, it's just a hotel room. Sorry. It is a little more expensive than the nice little apartment we had before, but we've kind of decided to stay here. Now, what is it working out US dollars? What is that? About $35 US, $40 US?
Yeah, something like that.
So we're probably paying somewhere. Michelle will just do the maths for us.
38. Nearly 39 US.
Nearly $39 US a night for this particular hotel, and it's got nothing much other than just a room, a little bit of water, and a kettle, a coffee making
It's a nice
machine.
room.
But it's a nice room,
Very central.
and it's really, we like the location. Let me just give you a little whiz round. Is it tidy enough, Michelle? Yes. Yeah. Look. So we've got two beds. We've got We've got a little wash hand basin. We've got a TV and little desk area, some storage area over here. We've got a nice WC bathroom, and we've got a big rain shower. What we really like, though, I'll just lift this up, is that we can go out onto this balcony. There's never not a guy going by in a police car with his lights flashing. Oh, hang on, back inside. Because I think the internet goes slow when we go out there. So we've got a nice balcony with a view of a road, which is noisy, but actually when we close the window, we barely hear anything.
So Ben says, well, that's almost the cost of my rent in Barbados, lol, and my house includes a kitchen. But you know it's always cheaper to rent
yeah.
long term.
Look, hotels make a lot of money. No, they don't. Yes, they do. Even if they're in only 30% occupancy, they make a lot of money. If you calculate the costs of renting a hotel room, times that by 365 days of the year, times it by the number of rooms in a hotel, you'll see hotels get a great deal more money than they would if they rented it out as a house. But that's the nature of the beast.
So Ben says, at least you have a nice study desk for working and the great balcony.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we do. And we're happy. We're only here for a week or so, Ben, just over a week, I think. And we're going somewhere nice. And eventually we'll find something a little bit more Barbadian. I'm sure.
Ruru says, hi Steve, when is the next joggle video? Looking forward to it.
We're trying to put a couple of joggle videos up a week at the moment. They generally seem to be going up with Wednesday and Friday. And that's I'll try and keep roughly to that schedule if I can. So it's a lot of editing for me. And it doesn't mean that I spend way too much time sat at this desk doing editing when I'd rather be sort of out exploring. But we're doing it for you, so, you know, and us, I suppose, in a way. But no, actually, now I'm doing it for you.
Cheryl says, we refuse to watch the news. All bad anyway. Why bother ruining your day? Live life and enjoy it. Absolutely.
Live life and enjoy it, Cheryl. Live life and enjoy it.
Northern Migration said, no news is good news. They love the bad news, so that's why we don't watch it.
Do you know what? We talk about, people say, oh, I don't watch the news. And we always say, I don't watch the news. But genuinely, I don't watch the news. I don't think I've watched a presented news program well, certainly I haven't, to my memory, in the last year. And if it's the last year, I'd say it's the last 20 years. I just don't have any interest in what that sort of media has to portray. You know, when you're in your 20s and things, you sort of look at the news and say, is there any reason why they just look for, you'll watch the news, say it's the ABC in Australia or something like that, or your BBC or ABC in America. You watch the news and they'll say, there's been a shooting in, Smeg under Little Puddle in Nicaragua, and 16 people were dead. And you think, hang on, I don't live in Nicaragua. I'm not in Smeg Bottom under Little Puddle. So you sit there and you think, what on God's earth do I need to know this news for? I'm sad for those people. I really don't want it to happen. But there is always an atrocity happening somewhere on the planet right this second, sadly, right this second. And that is, and this second as well, and this second as well. It just never stops. And what the news media want to do is constantly just keep turning their lens to find what misery they can share with people. So in your early 20s and 30s, you start to think this. And as you get older, you start to realize that this isn't a way, it's not a healthy way to live your life, turning your gaze constantly. And it's what creates this sort of hatred, this build-up of hatred and fear that people have. I learned this actually, I'm very lucky to have learned this at a very young age. I always remember my good friend George, who was 82, a lovely guy, used to say to me, he was frightened to go out on the streets. He was 82. He lived in a small village, and he was frightened to go out on the streets because he would get mugged or shot. And I used to say to him, and I was only probably about 22 maybe at the most, and I'd say to him, George, it's not a healthy way to live your life, mate. You're frightened to go out on the street because you might get mugged by some teenager, you might get shot. Do you know how many shootings there have been in this village over the last year? And he said, well, none. Any muggings or attacks in the village in the last year? None. There actually had been no shootings or muggings or attacks in that particular village for decades. And yet he chose to live his life in fear of being attacked or mugged, despite the fact that he'd never seen anything. And that was because when he got home at night, he would turn the news on and see constantly all this thing. And he would say, well, it's not as safe as it was when I was a youngster. And it's not actually true. The media is really, really not a healthy place to be in, unfortunately, and sometimes social media is starting to be that way as well. So I tend to ignore it because I don't want to be. I love George, the guy. He was one of my closest friends. For a 22-year-old to have an 82-year-old who was one of his closest friends for some years, love the guy to absolutely. Was with him virtually when he died. So that's how close we were. But I don't want to be living in that type of fear, and I don't want anyone to live in that sort of fear. I tried to change George's mind, and he did eventually see things a little more clearly. but it's very hard. Somebody today made some sort of wicked comment on a video which was all sort of angry and aggressive, and I replied to them and said, look, give me the boy until he's 7 and I'll show you the man, because it's very true. If you are conditioned as a child to by your schooling and things to think in a certain way, you will end up stuck in that rut for the rest. It's very hard to change your life. Am I banging on a bit, Michelle?
Well, we've done that subject now.
Yeah, we've done that
But
subject.
getting back to the hotel room, Ben said actually you're right, for short term $39 a night may not be too bad. Are you generally just looking at properties in Mexico for a week or two at a time, or a bit longer?
The reason this is what we would consider expensive, $38 a night, ha ha ha, a lot of people say that's cheap, but for us that we consider that expensive, is because it's downtown Cancun, it's very central. We could get cheaper, we could probably get something for under $25 to $20 a night, but it'd be a little bit daggy, a little bit sort of worn, and we just like we like things to be a little bit more functional and clean and useful. Now, if we went to the hotel zone here in Cancun, we'll be paying a lot more, and you wouldn't necessarily get much more in your room than you've got here. And I say a lot more, probably more sort of like $100, $200 a night.
So Ben said, no, keep going, Lowell, people need to hear it. And Northern Migration said, the news told me for years that South America is a very dangerous country. We chose not to listen, travelled all around for 15 months and had the most wonderful time.
Well, that's the funny thing about news, isn't it? The news actually does think South America is a country. That's how stupid the news is. I mean, they do tend to just paint everything, don't they? Don't go to South America. South America's massive. It's a whole collection. I'm not being disrespectful of what you said, but what you're saying is, it sort of underlines to me what is quite the amazing thing about how we're conditioned. South America is a dangerous country, and we do. And please don't take. I am not being facetious about this, but the news does that.
Yeah, they think Africa's a country too.
Africa's a country. The news actually portrays that, and they do it the same with even, like Australia is like this, Australia is like that, United Kingdom is like this, Ireland is like this, France is like this. Well, of course it is. None of these stereotypes are true or even close to true, to be honest. And if you want to know what France is like, or if you want to know what Mexico is like, or you want to know what Thailand is like, then look in your own backyard, because it's quite similar. People are similar. Anyway, they're generally really friendly, interested, inquisitive about you as a visitor, the same as you would be if somebody from a foreign country rocked up in your sleepy little village. It's the same.
Yeah, so Grim says, I'm very lonely from saying that type of stuff. Steve is more nice than I am about it then. And Ben says, why do they do it though? What is the benefit? Makes no sense.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, Ben. It's not really a case of, they're not doing it for a reason other than even the media, I don't think. People say if you don't agree with the lockdown and you don't agree with mask wearing, you don't agree with the way we've behaved with this whole COVID epidemic, they believe that you're a conspiracy theorist. and I've said many times before, this is the fact that the government could conspire is almost comical to me, because I've seen government at work firsthand, and there's no way. And as with the utmost respect, and I mean that quite loosely, of course, government, they're just people, they're humans, and they're quite often not the smartest of people either. It's very easy to, I've said this before, so I don't want to keep going over old ground, but you're given a job to do that is quite simple in every aspect. It's one that's almost it's a cookie cutter. What's the word for a turnkey? When you set up a new factory in Shenzhen in China or something, you have a turnkey project. Basically, you've just got to turn the key and start it, because everything's already implemented in place. It's the same with government, really. When you get elected in, there's no real sort of, if you get elected to become like a high official in government, they don't say, oh, now you've got to do your 5-year apprenticeship to learn how government works. They just say, oh, come in, sit down at a desk and carry on as you were, because nothing there's nothing complicated about it at all. It's all being done for you before your job. The job of being president, prime minister, a minister is a pre-baked job. There is no, you don't, the reason somebody can actually, if they were allowed to, if you have enough billions of dollars to get in to become a senior member of government, can happen overnight, is because the job isn't hard to do. You understand that, right? I mean, it's possibly the simplest job. Anybody could do it. Think about your friend that you think is about as stupid as a chocolate poker, right? You've got a mate as dumb as a chocolate poker, and he could step in to do almost any government job, and it wouldn't make a tad bit of difference because those jobs are pre-baked. So what I'm getting at here is this epidemic thing that people will accuse people and myself of being conspiracy theorists. It was something different, right? It wasn't in the cookie cutter system. They didn't know how to deal with it. Actually, they did. They'd done some done some sort of which they ignored. But anyway, they don't know how to deal with it. So you can see what happens when you give these idiots something complex, you know. It's like if I give you a turnkey project to open up a factory and we set it up in the same way as we did the factory in the last town, set it up, same employers, everything's this to go, and then you throw in something like a giant sort of avalanche in the middle of it all, it throws everyone into disarray. They can't cope with it.
So Ben said most people think like Steve, though, just the media makes it sound like no one does. And Denise agrees with him. And the Grim says, it's nice to see women agree with men who film this way. I see dainty feminists that need my help, but are afraid if I wear no bandana. And Denise laughed at that. But Cheryl said, so what are you going to do next, Steve? Yes, try changing the subject, lol.
Yes, Cheryl. So, we don't know. But we're going somewhere nice.
We're moving tomorrow.
We're moving tomorrow.
Moving day.
So we'll be getting a little taxi service from the hotel to a bus. We're going to go on a bus. I'll probably film it.
Yeah.
I'll probably film it. And we're going to have a bit more exploring. We've got some lovely videos from Cancun to share with you very shortly. And then we're going to...
Ben says lots of food.
Yeah, I would like to do a lot more live streams. Ben, you've asked, and a few people have asked about doing more live streams, and I would like to. We've got to kind of work out how to get enough data, whatever you like to call it, to do that, because if I've got to go and buy new data every single time I need to live stream, it could become tiresome. And
Ben says, oh nice, how long is the bus journey?
Let's see, I've told you now, Ben. 4.5 hours.
Or
So you
can,
oh, maybe 9. No, it's 4.5 hours.
So Grim says it's easy to get wrapped up in all this stuff. It's all new, but not new at all.
It's not new, and that's why it frustrates me a little bit, because it's kind of like a lot of friends of mine have said you must get involved in politics and try and put things right, but it seems pointless.
Ben says, to be honest, some people complain about the live streams, but have you noticed every time we do less live streams, we all complain that they want more, lol.
Well, Ben, in answer to that, I don't really care. we do what we want to do. No, I do care, but you know what I'm saying, mate. We don't.
We've got to get our cadence of videos going, haven't we? Because then we can do more live streams.
We need to get settled down somewhere for a while. All of you know that, and I've talked to you about this a long time. We would like to find somewhere. We'd like to go back home in some respects, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. And we're kind of enjoying the path we're on at the moment, so we're not even really giving that a lot of thought at the moment. We're going to continue to explore, continue to try to involve you as much as possible in what we're doing, and we do, love you guys as well. We're respectful and want you guys to have as good a life as possible. So I know a lot of people say they live vicariously through our videos and like the journey. So I don't want to sort of rub your nose in it, saying, oh, look at us, we're traveling, having a wonderful time. You know as well as anyone who watches us regularly knows that it's not all It's not all chocolate and roses. You know, it can be a lot tougher, but you have to sort of get and do what you have to do. Don't you, Michelle?
We do.
Do I know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely lost.
No, you're fine.
Oh,
Sue
right.
John says, wish you could cook us something. Well, we are talking about that, but we've got to get ourselves...
Yeah, we might do some fun cooking, Sue John, but I say that. See, if I say to you, oh, we're going to find ourselves a kitchen, do some cooking, then I feel like I'm obliged. We're not going to do that just at the moment, but, you know...
No, it actually takes quite a lot of energy to do the moving around and finding somewhere and looking for places. So, you know, we're trying.
We're trying.
And Ben says Mexico's a cheap country to live in, though. Have you ever thought about staying there longer term?
It's cheapish, Ben. It's a lovely country, and the people, as I said before, are lovely and warm and welcoming. But it's not a super cheap country. I mean, places in Southeast Asia and Indonesia and that are a lot cheaper. Probably half the price.
Northern Migration says live streams are great. And Gracie Kitty said, be bold and keep exploring. What about some beaches? Do you remember those Indian buses? Ha ha. Yeah, we do sort of...
The buses here in Mexico, we've done them before, can be really modern, but I'm not going to jinx it, because we'll end up being on some old charabang sort of...
The Indian buses were... Yeah, we just sort of give up on those in the end, didn't we? But we could probably try them again if we go back there. So Ben said, I meant in comparison to living in many parts of the USA, depends where you live, obviously.
It's you can go onto the internet and look at the cost of living in different parts of the world, and it can be modestly accurate. But you know, even if you live in the USA, say you want to live in Florida, there'll be a fairly decent fluctuation between cities and towns and more rural areas. So you could probably live for a similar amount of money that you do in Mexico. You could probably live in the USA.
And also when you first arrive in a country, it's hard to get those good deals. It takes a while to get in and find.
Yeah.
So you get the cost of living that the locals get.
Yes, yeah, because we're already. I mean, we went to, for example, there's a recommended restaurant near us that I found online. Everyone said, "Oh, it's a great restaurant." I went and looked at it, and it was all right. I mean, it had a guy in a sombrero, had a bit of sort of music playing in the background, but we walked into that restaurant. And they went to get a menu, and then they switched over and grabbed the menu from the other side of the counter and gave it to me, and it was all in English. And I looked and I thought, well, that's expensive for, you know, it was like 150 pesos for some tacos. And so I gave it back to her, and I picked up the one that he first went to pick up, and it was in Spanish, and it was identical, written out exactly the same, but the prices were a fraction. Like the same tacos were about 40 pesos instead of 150 pesos. So that annoyed me. It always does. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, you're a tourist, you shouldn't worry about that sort of stuff." Well, it annoys me. I don't care whether what other people's opinions are of it, to be frank. So, you know, it takes time when you get to a country to understand how to be within the system. You know, we could live, for example, in Japan, one of the most expensive countries in the world, for not much more than we could probably live here. Sounds crazy, but it's true. I mean, because a young student or a young family in Japan aren't all sort of multi-millionaires that are paying the sort of money that you think it costs an expat to live in Japan. You know, they're not all paying sort of $4,000 a month rent on apartments. They couldn't be, because their salaries don't equate to that. So you just got to get into the system, and Michelle and I know how to do that pretty well. So.
Ben said, did you walk out of the restaurant?
We only went in to see somebody had recommended it, and we went to have a little look, and I just was a bit like, I don't know. Once a place does that to you, are you going to go back and use it? Probably not.
So Gordon says, what's your favourite country you have been to?
Gordon or Gunlove?
Gunlove.
People will hear us mentioning people's names occasionally, and because we know quite a few subscribers' names, even though their handles might be slightly different. So.
Sorry, Gunlove says, what's your favourite country? And also then Northern Migration says, if you could live in any country in the world and money wasn't an option, where would it be? Because it's hard to choose a favourite country, isn't it? A
little bit. I do think we often come back to Australia as being our favourite country. So it's kind of our own country is you know, there are a lot of really great positives in Australia. Whether it's the best country in the world to live, it's hard to say, because there are people living in Australia in the most miserable conditions, and there are people who make the best of things.
And I think actually my answer to northern migration says about which country would you live in the world if money wasn't an option, Australia would be it.
Yeah, if money were no option, Australia would be definitely because the quality of life, if money were no option. But money is always an issue, isn't it? Money was no issue. Sorry, not no option.
Denise says, "My bad. I thought you were British."
No, we're Australian, but we originally were from the UK, so we have British accents. But I haven't lived in the UK very much, to be honest, in my whole life. So, although technically you could say I am British because I've got a British accent, I know so little about the United Kingdom. I've lived in Australia more than I've lived in the United Kingdom. So, yeah.
So Cheryl said, "Cooking is awesome. Wish you could learn something there to cook and teach us every now and again. You do an awesome job."
Cheryl, I will, sweetheart. Thank you very much. I will try and do something.
So Ben said, "What country are you both thinking of settling down in, given what's happened over the past 12 months? Any contenders right now?" Settling down?
We'll never settle down, Ben. I'd rather die on the road than settle anywhere, to be honest, and that is the truth. I would rather pass away travelling than I would settled anywhere. But we've got, on a very personal level, if you want to know our situation, we're very close as a family, right? So Michelle and I are always wanting to be as close to our children and family as possible. Our kids mean a lot to us, so we want to be able to get to them and see them as often as possible. Now, a lot of people say, well, go and live in Melbourne where the kids are, and then you'll be able to see them that often. But from experience, and a lot of you will probably attest to this, and I'm not talking about this year where everyone's, I haven't seen anyone for 20 months. I'm talking about in general, when you live often in the same city as your family, you don't see them that often, quite often, right? You might see one member, but you don't often see people. So living in the same city doesn't always mean you'll see a great deal. And the times you do see your family are quite often short. And the quality of that time is not that great. So I don't mind living close enough to my kids so that we can see them for 3-4 weeks at a time, really good quality time. So that's a little bit what we take into consideration. One of the problems with Australia is it's a long way from everywhere. Yeah, there's nowhere close to Australia. It's not sort of sat down there thinking, it's just a few hours over to the US, or it's a few hours over to Asia even, particularly as most of Australia is sort of developed on the bottom, the arse end of Australia, basically. So even then, you've got to go all the way across Australia just before. So even if you want to go to the other side of Australia, it can take you 8 hours. So you're in that situation all the time that you don't want to be. Nobody wants to fly 16, 18 hours every time they jump on a plane. And also, if your kids want to come and see you, my mum wants to come and see me, any of the sisters, they want to come over, and nobody's going to want to come and visit you if you're 16, 20 hours away, because it's a big job. So that's something we have to contend with.
Cheryl said that's a fact, Steve. Family super close is seeing less of them for sure.
Yeah, I found that to be. Well, last time Michelle and I went back we said, let's go back to Melbourne, sit down, see the kids a lot more, it'd be great. So we went back to Melbourne. We never saw them. They're always busy. They're always busy. They've got their own lives. They've got stuff going on there. They've got loads happening, and they haven't got time to spend.
But when they decide to come and see us when we're actually in a place, then they're coming away on holidays, and then that's when you get the
quality of the time. If we were, say, to base ourselves in Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Singapore, India, for example, if our kids come to see us, they'll come and see us for 2 or 3 weeks. They'll take a break and come and stay with us, and then you get really good quality time. So. And we've lived as expats pretty much all our lives, so we know the expat life. Our kids have lived as expats most of their life as well.
Bella Alice says, love to check in, and you're talking about me. Hi.
See? And there you go. Hi, sweetheart. See, my kids are absolutely gorgeous, and I don't mind saying that when they're listening as well. That we get on really well with them. That we're a very close family. So we're trying always to think about how we can see more of them. And one of the things that doesn't get us to see more of them is going to live too close. So we'd like to sort of find that balance.
Yeah, Ben's asked a couple of times in different ways, but he says, I guess my question is, are you thinking of having a country as a base other than Australia?
Yes.
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 If you're at work at the moment, Belle Alice, what are you doing on listening to us?
Anyway, so we consider every country we go to, because we'd never been to Turkey before we went to Turkey. Unfortunately, the situation in Turkey was a lot less favourable. But even when we went to Turkey, we thought, oh, if this is really nice, we might stay here for a few years. That happens to Michelle and I. We've been to places in the past where we thought we might have gone for 2 months and stayed there for 6 years. It's just the way we always rock and roll. It's just what we do, So we're here in Mexico right now, and we're considering whether we stay forever in Mexico. Not forever, for several years in Mexico. We're probably not. It's a bit far away from home, and there's always visa issues and the like. We're always open to staying in a place, but we don't go there with the specific want. It's just if we get somewhere and we like it, we might stay there for a bit longer.
Gracie Kitty says, come and freeze in Canada. I'd like to go to Canada. I don't know what it's like in the middle of winter, but I'd like to go to Canada.
Yeah, my nephew lives in Canada, and he was meant to get married last year. So if you're watching at all, Tom, love to you, mate. And sorry you couldn't get married last year because of the situation.
So P4 Rit says, having some burgers from KFC. Nice. And
not really burgers then.
And Good Love says 10:05 p.m. here.
You have some bread with some stuff in it.
5:06 in Cancun. Correct, Ben?
It is.
And Grim. They're all helping us out there.
So what have we nattered about? We nattered about the usual sort of suspects.
Yeah.
Cheryl, I know you've asked a few times, if you're still there, about us doing cooking. It'll come back. We will come back to doing cooking, but it'll be with a new sense of invigoration. It'll be with a new, reasoning behind it. I don't want to do cooking on this cooking channel. I don't want to be Steve's Kitchen just because it's become a 9-to-5 job.
So Cheryl said, I sure wish you would come to Tucson.
Tucson, Arizona. Tucson, Arizona?
Yes. Northern Migration said, has there ever been a country where you've travelled that you felt unsafe? No. Yes, I knew how to pronounce it, Ben. I got it right this time.
Tucson.
I'm practising. No, lots of people say, oh, you shouldn't go there because it's unsafe, or you shouldn't go there. But, we never really feel unsafe. We're sensible.
We don't overly research it.
No, we
As
don't.
my Coke's gone.
Yeah.
Anyone want 5 pesos?
5 pesos.
So, the other thing, Michelle.
Oh, yes.
While I'm grazing.
While you're grazing.
These are lovely. Now, we had the best of these in India.
We did.
This is a packet of fried plantain or potato or bananas. I think these are plantains. So, when we had these in India, they were really good, but they're not bad here either.
Safety is an illusion. Absolutely.
So look, you've got these sort of long sliced. What do they call them here in Mexico?
Plantains.
No. What do the Mexicans call bananas, guys? Somebody remind me. I said it yesterday. So anyway, they're fried. We think in coconut oil, and. Platano.
Something like that.
And they come with a little pouch of chili sauce.
Yeah, Ben says he's having those in Barbados as well. Delicious.
Yum yum.
So Cheryl says...
Platano, yeah. Not plan, is it? It's platano. Am I right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Platano. See?
Yeah, which is different to plantains.
Oh, yes.
Plantains are what we call them in English when we talk about a type of banana. But it's platano. Platano mucho verde.
So Cheryl says absolutely, but just think you have experienced so many different foods, would love to try them. Getting ingredients is always an issue.
Look at the little seeds in the middle of the bananas, look.
Getting ingredients in some countries is always an issue. But then sometimes you can have to find a substitute for it.
Yeah, sometimes people will say to me, can I do this recipe and use brown sugar? And you think, well, yeah, of course you can. I mean, it's a cake. It doesn't matter what sugar you use. There are quite often very simple variations you can make of a dish. But there are countries where we've been where it's really hard to find certain ingredients. And, you know, if you want to make something like homemade sausages, British style sort of sausages, which are the type I like. I should say Aussie, but they're even in Australia, they're basically British style bangers. Which I've got a recipe for on my channel. They're not hard to make, very simple to make if you've got the gear, but not so easy to make if you can't get access to the skins.
So Denise says Ben is bilingual. I think Ben is using Google. Sorry, Ben. Google says, have you ever used an air fryer ninja?
No, it's
Quality bit of kit.
Sounds rubbish, Gordon. I'm not a big fan of these. An air fryer ninja.
Gracie Kitty says, sounds healthy, especially for kids. That's the bananas.
Yeah, look at the length of that banana.
And Grim says, Yo Gusto Papa's Spritz. Is you eating fried potatoes? No, I think they're bananas.
No.
I think that's what he said.
Come is to eat.
Grim
To
says,
come.
I'm Irish. Denise, what's your excuse? Cheryl says, I've recently tried bitter melon. Quite the trick to get rid of the bitter, but super delicious.
Bitter lemon's really nice to use in curries and things. You know, you don't need to particularly get rid of the bitterness if you use it in the right dishes. But we used to use it a lot in Indian cooking, Sri Lankan cooking, some parts of Asia as well. We used a lot of bitter melon. Yeah, it can be. I mean, it's not so. It's an unusual taste.
Ben said, did he just cough? That must mean COVID.
Oh.
Or he's choking on his bananas.
It's because I'm talking to you and eating lovely plantains. Oh.
Arthur says tostones.
Tostadas?
No, tostones. Tostones. So Denise is also Irish, maybe. A little conversation, Denise and Grim. You carry on. We don't tend to put the Tabasco on them, do we?
No.
Oh, it's not Tabasco. It looks like a Tabasco bottle.
It's not Tabasco. It's a little chili sauce, though.
So Gracie Kitty said air fryers are awesome. Bought one at Thanksgiving. We've used them. They're all right.
We've used them, and they're look, everything like an air fryer or one of those awful, one of those horrible cookers that basically just heat things up and mix them.
Oh yes, Thermomix.
I'll upset a lot of people if I say, oh, that nonsense like the rubbishy Thermomixes. You know, which basically is just a heated pot with a stirring ladle in it.
Charlotte says, try the chili sauce, it's hot. It will spoil them.
A lot of those things are great, and they're great too. I love my gadgets myself, but eventually they do just start gathering dust on the side, and you'll use them for 4, 5, 6 months even. You might use them twice. Sometimes you might use them for a few months. If it's got a cult around it, which the Thermomix has like a cult following, it's almost like, I don't know, I'm not going to get into religion, but it can...
Like Tupperware.
Yeah, people can start to believe their own, you know, their own nonsense, really, that it isn't just basically it's not a great quality pan, it's not a great quality slow cooker, it's not a great quality blender. It's mediocre in absolutely everything, but it does everything mediocrely in one spot. And people start to believe, you know, their own sort of gospel on this sort of nonsense. But yeah, I like that. The air dryers are fun. They do great chips. They do tend to. I don't know if you've noticed with an air fryer how quite often the quantity, if you cut up potatoes and put them into an air fryer, they shrink down by volume quite a bit because it's a hot aired sort of cooking, low oil system. So they shrink. A lot of moisture comes out of the potatoes when they cook. And this is a great thing, but people say they do so many different things, like, you know, sausages and meat, and they don't really. They really only do chips quite well, and even then, they don't do them that well.
So Grim says, can't dazzle them with your brilliance, baffle them with your BS.
Yeah, exactly. The Thermomix is best at that.
Ben wants to know what are the chips flavoured? Just got salt on them, Ben.
Salty, Ben.
And you can add chilli to them.
And a little bit of the oil they're fried in.
Gunlo says, what's the best cheap steak to buy?
It depends where you live, Gordon, really. It depends where you live, because some countries, if you're in South America, the country of South America, if you're in Argentina, for example, the beef is not expensive and the cuts are amazing, so you can get lovely T-bone steaks for inexpensive costs. But I think in the United Kingdom, where you are, let's try the chili sauce. So in the United Kingdom, where you are, I think beef steak, if we're talking about beef, I'm not sure what the cheap cuts are in your country, mate. I don't know. I would say probably your cheapest steaks, if you're in the United Kingdom, were your minute steaks, but they're not great meat. You know, they're not great quality cuts of meat. I particularly like, if I'm in the UK, one of my favourite, probably my favourite cut of beef is rump.
Rump steaks. Cooked well.
Cooked well, a rump steak is second to none. It's got all the right amount of fats in it to have the flavour. Some people don't like the fact that it's got the rind, the backside rump cut. So it's a good cut. If you go to the US, you probably can't even find rump steak, because I don't think they call it rump. So I'm never quite sure which countries call which what. But if you want the steaks to be, melt in the mouth, soft, and can be cooked, they have to be from the, what's the correct term? They're low muscle meats, you know. So they come from the loin, areas that don't work so hard. Like if it's in the shoulder, which works hard, or in the backside, the rump of the animal, which works hard, the meats are often tougher, so they need slower cooking. But they still make, if you slice them thin enough, they can still make good, flavoursome steaks. Gordon, it's such a big thing. The obvious thing would be just say, you know, ribeye or sirloin.
Grim
or
says, I like rare grass-fed ribeye. Arthur says top sirloin cap.
Yeah.
Cheryl says every gadget in the kitchen has to be multi-purpose and do an exceptional job, otherwise a waste of money, meaning a pot and a spoon is best.
It's funny, as Michelle was saying that, Cheryl, I was just about to say, like a spoon.
And Grim says, my father cooks meatballs in an air fryer. I don't like it as much as sauteed in ghee.
If you do meatballs in an air dryer, one thing it will do, right, is it will dry that meat out. Because it's a hot air cooking method, and it will take, it's not going to, if you want meatballs to taste really good, you want to get a hot skillet and you want to sear those meatballs so the outside of the meatball is dark brown and caramelized. Right now you're trapping all the flavors into those. Keep those meatballs aside, make up your stew or your ragu, add the meatballs in the last minute just to cook them through and heat them through, and you're going to have lots of moisture and flavour in the meatballs. Pop them into an air dryer. Thanks, Michelle. You can tell I'm getting dry, can you? Look, the world's stinkiest water bottle.
We get 2 bottles of water in this room. Denise says making salmon for dinner, and Goonlove says fillet is so expensive.
Yeah, and some places fillet is cheap, but I think that's why I say I'm not sure what the cheap cuts are.
Gracie Kitty says flank steak, maybe. We make rump roast that area, you're saying.
Yeah, I tell you what you can do if you really want to. I think you can do this still in the UK. I know we used to do it all the time in France when we lived there, and I did it also when we lived briefly in the UK. is to, if you want really good quality beef, like super, and this will be the same in America, same in Australia, by the way, same anywhere in the world. If you want really, really good quality, inexpensive beef, see if you can find a way of buying from a farm. And when when you go to a farm, like a farm door supplier, they're going to say, oh, ours is grass fed and we massage the babies for an hour before we kill them or whatever. Nonsense they come up with. And that's why it's £7,000 a kilo for our beautiful, you know, beef. You've got to find don't find that farmer. That farmer talks more bull than his own cows produce from their rear ends. You've got to find a farm that you can befriend in a way that you could buy like half a cow, or they generally will sell you hind quarter or a fore quarter. So quarter of a cow or quarter of a fore quarter or rear quarter. If you can find a farmer that will sell you pork, a whole pig, and you can butcher it yourself, which I can, but if you can't, you can get someone to butcher it for you. It might sound expensive when if you can get the price about right, you might find, this is way too much information, isn't it? But you can often find that you'll pay a tiny price, like, I don't know, example, a few dollars a kilo for a whole hind quarter or fore quarter of beef. And that means if you get if you get half an animal, you get all those premium cuts in there, and you also get the rougher cuts. But you can end up with really, really good deals on food. And if you've got a family, that's a really good way to buy. When we had kids, we always bought sort of full animals, half animals, and we prepared them.
So
too much information?
Yeah, top sirloin cap is the top muscle of the butt.
Okay.
Nigel Barrett said, never found fillet steaks in the US. Always wondered if they cut it differently from the UK.
They do.
They do call it different things as well, don't they?
The cuts are different in Australia than they are in the UK. They're different in most countries around the world. And they even sometimes butcher them slightly differently. So it's hard to know. I do find it difficult to remember the way and then you've got different animals as well. So yeah, you've got to do your own research for your own country.
Grim says $14 for 2 strip steaks. And he also said it's like drugs, bulk is always cheaper.
What?
It's like buying drugs, bulk is always cheaper.
Who said that?
Grim. And Ben says, I think it's like everything, Grim. Yes, if you buy anything in bulk.
You're talking about paracetamol, right?
Of course.
You know, if you want to buy, here's a tip for my Aussie viewers. Here's one that you didn't ever know. If you want to buy the cheapest organic grass-fed beef, Australian grass-fed beef, go to Philadelphia.
Because they won't be cheap because you've got to get to Philadelphia.
We were in Philly, and my dear friend Anne, she had bought like organic fillet Australian grass-fed beef, and I think they paid about sort of $5 a kilo for it, and it was from Australia, and they were buying it in. And I was so annoyed. I said, "Well, that meat would have cost us, like, if it was organic grass-fed, it would have probably cost us like $80 a kilo." And yet, for some reason, in different parts of the world, yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it?
Sharon says, my mum and dad used to buy half a cow, and every time they'd say, chuck the other half in and we'll walk it home.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find yourself in a scenario where you are, Gordon, up north, there must be somewhere you can find a farmer. You know, if you can, the easiest ones often to find are people that provide lamb or pork, because they're smaller animals and they're more. But once you get into that community, you get to start to know somebody.
Because people quite often will have a whole pig and a whole lamb, but it's not very often they have a whole cow.
But if you can befriend a farmer and they actually do their own sort of butchering and things, you'll find that quite often they don't want a whole beef. They only want for their own families. They might only want a hind quarter, fore quarter of beef, so they'll happily sell it to their friends and neighbours. You just got to make friends.
Grim says Aussies do the cow nicely. That's messed up. We get your beef cheaper than you do. Absolutely.
It's shocking, really, and it doesn't make political sense, does it? You know, why would it be shipped all the way around the world and sold cheaper in Philly? Anyway, that's quite a few years ago, mind you. That's probably going back about maybe 5 years or so since we came across that. But anyway, maybe even a little longer.
Well, probably
But
about
it's still happening.
I mean, if they actually sold it cheaper in Australia, they'd sell better quality meat and people would buy it. And
Yeah.
it'd be really
And also, let me
Well-
just say another thing, another caveat to that whole thing. The cut of beef will only be as good as the length of time that beef has been hung as well. And there are so many rules due to the European Union that you were members of, that said you had to do so many different things that the beef had become tasteless. You know, they basically butcher it and sell it in the supermarkets like the week after it's butchered. And beef actually really, if one of the meats that really improves with age, and I mean literally hanging the meat for weeks upon weeks at a time, beef is something that really improves its flavour with age.
Yeah.
Massively. I mean, not just a small amount, massively changes the complexity and taste of the flavour. Really, really high quality beef, butchered and sold within a week of being slaughtered, will never taste even close. It's like two different animals almost than a piece of beef that's been hung for 6 weeks, 8 weeks in a cool room before it's cut up and processed.
Gordon Salguno said he could see the pub from here. I think that's where he is. My computer just
Did your laptop just turn off?
Yeah, I didn't plug in. Plugged in now.
So just, if you've got any questions, Michelle is just going to reconnect.
Alright, I can go onto here. Do it this way.
I think we're going to stop soon,
I
huh?
think we've been going for quite a while.
We'll just get back online
Just check
and see if there's any
questions.
question. We're going to get off.
Cheryl wanted to know how was the chili, which you tasted?
It was fairly mild. Sure, let me put a bit more on there.
While you're doing that, Grim says all the prices went up since the lockdown.
I've got a
The
nice-
prices have gone up all over the world.
Nice big dollop of it in there, Cheryl. Oh,
Don't make a mess.
it's interesting, but now, Cheryl, you've got it all over my shorts.
Ben says, but very little is cheaper in Australia, Michelle. I know, Ben, everything's expensive. I think it's got more expensive since you've been away.
Yeah, we do have an expensive country, but not the most expensive, but
And Goonlove said, is fuel cheap in Australia?
not particularly. I mean, what we're paying about one Australian 125 a litre. And I think it goes up and it fluctuates up and down for regular gas. How does that compare to the US? What are you paying? You pay a gallon, right? So I don't know.
So Grim said you can go more than an hour. Yes, we have. Steve's Cooking's in. Says Skegness is looking warm, matey.
G'day, mate. Skegness.
Skegness as in Cancun.
Stevie, we're not in Skeggy.
And I hear congratulations are in order, Steve. I hear another little one is on the way.
Oh, see, she keeps abreast of it all. See, I hear commiserations are in order, Steve.
He's got another little girl coming arriving later in the year.
Yeah, sit down, mate. Take it easy. Have a drink on me. Well, not on me, but have one anyway.
Oh, he's so mean. He's so mean.
Bit more chili on that. Let's go for that again.
So Ben says 125 Australian is 70 pence, which is why it's cheaper than the UK. I think we're talking about fuel prices there.
It's cheaper than the UK, but the UK has always been expensive. You know, back in the day before the euro, when we travelled around Europe, way before the euro came in, which basically destroyed most of Europe as far as prices were concerned, it became completely vanilla. The UK was quite often 2 to 3 times the price of the rest of Europe. So if you were down in sort of Portugal, for example, or the south of Spain, you would pay sometimes as little as a third of the price of the UK. Now everything in Europe's about the same. It's all around a euro, whatever, euro 10, euro 20, euro 30. It's the same from the south to the north. So, but I think it's still cheaper than the UK.
So Steve says, haha, another round of baby shark, thank you.
Yes, mate. Rather you than me.
Arthur Larson says, been using dry aging bags for use in a regular fridge.
Good job, mate. I mean, you can actually dry age your beef itself, but once you take it off the bone and you refrigerate it down to refrigeration, it slows down the maturing process. So you ideally you want to age the beef on the bone, and you want to age it not in a refrigerated temperature. It wants to be more sort of like a cool room temperature. Like in France, we would use the cave. You know, it would be the temperatures were around about sort of 8 to 12 degrees centigrade. Don't quote me on this because it's been a long time since I've used it, but they weren't refrigeration cold, and then you could hang the beef and it would mature. I mean, remember in the old days, people just used to hang it in their sheds. You know, they'd put a bit of muslin over it and they'd hang it in the shed and age it, or the butchers would do much the same. But you know, if you do chill it, it does slow down the aging.
Cheryl says, have you had a good margaritas there?
No. No, the margaritas here, to me, it looks all like tourist nonsense. I'm not that bothered by it. I probably can make a better margarita, but we'll wait until we're somewhere a little less touristic. And Michelle doesn't drink, so it's not like Michelle is desperate to have a margarita. If she was, maybe we might have tried one. I'd rather have an interesting beer.
So Grim says we're at $2.69 per gallon in Pennsylvania on average.
I don't know what that is a litre. Maybe somebody can do the maths for us. Are tacos hard or soft and soft shell? Look, Gordon, those hard shell tacos that you have in Australia and in the UK, they're not even a real thing. You know, they're so not Mexican. They're basically a great big crisp or a big salty crisp that they sell.
Cooking said, quick question, tacos in Mexico must be night and day compared to the US, right?
Oh, they're just, oh, I don't know if they're night and day, because I think you can get some good tacos in parts of the US, Steve, because there's such a close connection with the Mexican communities here. But the tacos down here are fantastic. You know, the meat's great. They're proper masa flour tacos. We ate them at the beginning of the show. Not tacos. We had quesadillas, and empanadas. But yes, I mean, when you go into sort of an Anglo-sized environment and they talk about tacos, they're usually talking about those awful bloody crisps, you know. Or I think if you go to a Mexican restaurant in a lot of places in Europe or in the most you'll get is a big plate of, what are those triangular crisps? Nacho. You get like a plate of nachos with some sort of like minced beef over the top and some sprinkled cheddar cheese. This can be there is no correlation between this food and Mexican food at all. There is nothing in Mexico. Well, tostadas. There is tostadas, which are basically the Mexican crisps. But they don't.
Denise says, sorry, got to run. Thanks for the stream. I appreciate it. Bye, Denise.
Bye, Denise. So yeah, tacos are soft shell. They're not shell. It's not. They're a soft bread, a tortilla bread. And generally, if you're having them on the streets, they're going to be two tacos together. They'll fry them on a hot plate to warm them through, and then they'll put meat and chilies and maybe some vegetables and things in there, and you pick them up. It folds up like a big soft bread, and you eat it. That's a taco. After you've drizzled them in lime or limon, and they're just, that's tacos.
New York City has good tacos, and Cheryl says, you bet, we have lots of good authentic places here in Tucson. Yeah,
I got a feeling that in America you can probably get good tacos, but I don't. Those hard shell things that you get in the shops in the UK, I saw them, and we have them in Australia. There is no connection between that food and Mexico whatsoever. It's just
Bruce says same with pizza in New York and Italy, two totally different things.
A little bit, but pizza in New York, not the deep pan pizza, but pizza in New York and pizza in Italy. I mean, you get really good pizza in New York, right? It's good bread, good dough, made out into a flat bread, covered with toppings and baked in the oven. But tacos are not tacos in Australia or the UK. It's more like it's like comparing fish and chips to pie and mash. You know, they're not the same product even whatsoever, and they're not the stuff we have in Australia. That's not Mexican.
Cheryl says, but like everywhere, northern Mexico and southern Mexico are very different.
I'm sure they are, though. The tacos, unless you get right up to Baja, where I'm sure it gets much more influenced by the American palate, but generally tacos across Mexico are very similar.
As Grim said, salsa
They're really good.
Cilantro, lime, jalapenos.
So good. We had some yesterday, and they were amazing.
Yeah.
Really amazing. And we used to have them all the time in Mexico City, in San Miguel de Allende, in Oaxaca. Michelle and I have been around Mexico. You know, when I first came here, I was quite surprised at just how different Mexican food was here to what you would see in a sort of Mexicana restaurant in other parts of the world. But I'm pleasantly surprised, because it means that genuinely, if you want to have really good Mexican food, you got to come to Mexico. you got to come.
That's like trying to buy thin tortillas in Iowa. Impossible.
Yeah. And tortillas also, when you buy them in almost any country in the world, they're made with bread flour. You know, they're made with wheat flour. And tortillas here are almost never made with wheat flour, because wheat is not an indigenous plant to this part of the world. It was always corn, and you might think corn flour and wheat flour are interchangeably very similar. They're not, because the flour they use here is called nixtamalized flour. I've done a whole video on it. I'll show you how to make nixtamalized flour on the channel. I've shown you how to actually grind corn down, make your own masa. They're a very unusual type of flour. It's made through a chemical process rather than just grinding the flour up, and it tastes very different. Really nice.
So I think we've caught up. Sue Johns has obviously hit the enter button like I do all the time, so we've only got half a question. And we've been on for 95 minutes.
All right. So, yes, the food was beautiful. You want to go to the beginning, you'll see all the empanadas and the quesadillas that we had at the beginning of the show. I think Michelle and I are going to get off. Steve, congratulations, mate. And everybody, we hope you're having a great time. I know we get.
Please put the how to make tortilla chips with masa recipe up. It is a very good recipe.
I know it is very, very interesting. You'll see the passion that I have, and also I show you how to make, if you want to see how to make mole, my version of mole, but fairly authentic, as close as I can do. So if you want to make a beautiful Mexican mole to get those flavors, it's actually, I can recreate Mexican flavors of food outside of Mexico, but it does take a lot of effort.
It does.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to go now.
All right, everybody. Love to you all. Michelle and I will see you. We're doing a bit of traveling over the next few days, so we might go a little bit dark. But
tomorrow there's another joggle video out.
Joggle video
Friday,
tomorrow.
And the weekend there will be another Mexican video, and then we'll try and live stream sometime.
All right. Peace out. Be
Bye.
good. See you next time.